Hi there. Good to have you back. Many years ago, before we moved to Asia, I tried to organize a citywide prayer meeting for the Muslim world in our small town, 30,000 people. I distinctly remember one pastor that I talked to. After explaining the idea to him, he looked at me and said, Muslims have their own religion and works just fine for them. Why are you going to bother them? What did they need to hear about Jesus for? I was floored. I was floored. Now, that was over 30 years ago, remember, in a small town in Arkansas. In retrospect, I think it's a perfect example of the critical issue that has been growing this past generation. And your generation of missionaries are going to face far worse than I ever did, but few people are talking about. And that's the issue of religious pluralism, our topic this week. Religious pluralism. It's not a religion. You'll see it's a mindset. Um, okay. Now, what exactly is religious pluralism? We need to kind of get some idea, some sense of definition to it, even though it's hard to define, just like animism. But religious pluralism is the perspective that all religions are equally valid paths to the same God or to the same ultimate reality. Okay. It also is a perspective that includes all major religions. They're all pointing in the same way. That all roads are leading to God or ultimate reality. It also is a perspective that no single religion can hold exclusive truth. So no single religion can hold all the truth that there is. And it also promotes the idea that multiple beliefs can coexist even with conflicting claims, but yet they're not mutually exclusive. Yeah. This is one of those really slippery concepts. So pay careful attention this week because it's hard to get a hold of, but I want you to get a hold of it. It's important. You see, I can agree, and I hope you can too, that people from any religion can hold some true values. Not everything in their mind and heart is wrong. For example, um, if you're in an airport, you see a small child a father holding a small child. I don't care if you're in New York or if you're in Abu Dhabi, if you're in Pakistan, if you're in Kazakhstan, I don't care where you are, people are going to smile. Why? Because when they see that father holding up his little son or little girl, that love between a parent and a child is a universal value. It's something that all across the world humans love to see that. Okay. I don't care if you're Hindu, Muslim, Buddhist, or even some wild American animist practicing who knows what kind of crystal-based belief you have. Everyone appreciates a moment moment of interaction between a father and a child. Okay, this expression, the reason that it's so common, the reason that it's held in common from a Christian point of view is what theologians call it. It's representing common grace. And that common grace, the idea of common grace refers to practical expressions of God's goodness that are available to all people because of our shared humanity. The love between a parent and a child, the rain on the fields. There's a lot of things that are God gives everyone created in His image. And so some things like that they just resonate with us as humans. We need rain, we get rain, whether we thank God for it or thank our lucky stars. It is in reality God's common grace to humanity. Okay. Now, common grace only goes so far, of course, but it can still be a point at which God uses to cause men to seek Him. But now let's get back to pluralism. Don't want to be too long there. So there, um, there are many here in the West, many here in the Western world who promote a form of pluralism here, um, like you see it here on this bumper sticker. And don't get me wrong, I've had this idea of coexistence. See, this is where it's slippery. I've had good friends that were Muslims, dear friends, people that I trusted and valued their friendship who are Muslims. But at the same time, my heart aches to know that they're going into a godless eternity because their religion can't save them. I still love them, still trust them, still value them, but that doesn't mean I accept their religion as valid. There are lots of good things in the Muslim world, just like I'm sure there's lots of good things in the Buddhist or Hindu world. Honest and kind people who do good things, who have good hearts and do good things. But as an evangelical Christian, I know that honesty, goodness, and kindness, or even being the very best of people, doesn't gain heaven. So to peacefully coexist is one thing, but the implication is that we should just stop doing mission and just accept other people's religion as valid. That's what the implication is of this coexist concept of that plural form of pluralism. And that is something I cannot do. There are both formal and informal versions of religious pluralism. And I want to look at a couple examples of each. So there's, say, the Baha'i. The Baha'i movement is a religion. It's a monotheistic religion found in the Middle East about the time of the American Civil War. It's not completely universalistic because it's confined to monotheism, but it has edges that reach into other things. Its founding prophet, the prophet Ba'u'llah, was supposedly in the line of all the true prophets and true religions that came down through the ages. So in his teaching, Hinduism, Judaism, Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, Christianity, Islam were all a line of prophets that eventually culminated in him. Very similar to Islamic thought, except Muhammad taught that the line of prophets ended with him, and he probably would. I don't think he knew anything about Hinduism, but anyhow, you see what I'm talking about. And the Baha'i faith has 5 to 6 million followers around the world. One that you might be more familiar with is Unitarian Universalism here in the U.S. Here's a piece from their official website. You may want to stop the video and read on this piece all the different religious symbols and religions that they universalize into their movement, but yet they still claim to be Christian. Very interesting movement. It's common here in the States. In fact, I hate to say it, but my brother went to a Universalist church for a while. And now let's look at some of the informal expressions of religious pluralism. This is what is more common, but most of the time it kind of slips under the radar and people don't even notice what they're seeing. The pastor I mentioned at the beginning, that was a good illustration of informal pluralism. Okay. How about going back to that coexist bumper sticker? Again, very good example of pluralism. Okay. Here's one that you may not even notice, but some expressions, say it carefully, some expressions of pro-Israeli theology here in the US are definitely pluralistic. I remember one time hearing a TV preacher that my mom likes to listen to, one that's pretty famous here in the South, say that Israel has their own way to God. They don't need the gospel. Horrible, horrible theology from a supposedly evangelical pastor preaching on TV. That's pro-Israeli pluralism. Or you may hear it just expressed lightly in terms like this. Well, you have your religion and I have my own. That's pluralism. Or it doesn't matter what you believe, just as long as you believe in God. Again, a form of pluralism light, if you will. Informal pluralism slips into Christian thought when there's a lack of conviction about our fundamental doctrines. As you go out in the world of different religions, you absolutely must have a firm grasp on what you believe. Of course, we're not all going to agree with every single fine point of doctrine in this room. If we sat and talked, there would be some disagreements. But as evangelicals, there are core doctrines that we absolutely must hold, and we collectively hold together. For example, I'm sure you read over the Bethany statement of faith before you enrolled. But let's be honest, sometimes in the midst of getting something like that, a bunch of paperwork done, we read over and skim over things quickly. I am telling you right now, it's a good time to go back and reread the Bethany Global University Statement of Faith. And when you do, I encourage you, if there's something in there that you're not sure about or you don't know how you feel about, or just, man, I don't know if I believe that at all, talk to a trusted Christian leader and see if they can help you with it. Your pastor, maybe one of your other instructors, I'm here for you if you need that, but do it, please. Don't just don't blow by it. Another thing that can open the door to religious pluralism is when you start meeting people from other religions. What are you going to do when you meet people from some of the religion that are really good people, morally upright people, but yet they're a Muslim or a Hindu or whatever? I remember a time when Lynn and I were shopping in a bazaar in Central Asia. We just bought something and walked a little ways further away from that stall when a little boy came running up behind us and said, "Hey, Aka, Aka," which is like a term of respect. And he got my attention. I turned around and he said, "My father said he didn't give you the right change." And he held out his hand. He wanted me to give this back to you. And he held out his hand. There were just a few coins in it. That kind of honesty would be rare, would be shocking here in the United States, but it's common in the Muslim world. So at what point do you handle, how do you handle this? How do you feel about a theology that says a man like that is going to hell? The voice of religious pluralism says, well, you'd have to be an arrogant pig to think such a man doesn't go to hell. And you know, good evangelical, solid evangelical theology agrees with that. Yeah, you'd have to be not that you'd have to think you'd have to be a pig to agree with that. You have to be a big pig to think you're any better than him. Because sound doctrine tells us I'm no better than that. Sound doctrine reminds me that knowing Christ and believing in him is the only true source of righteousness, not how good I am. When I was teaching at the American University of Central Asia in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, I had a very devout Muslim colleague who also was a personal friend. He was so devout, in fact, that he sometimes led Muslim short-term mission teams to other countries. Yes, they do that. Anyhow, one day this Emil came to me and said he wanted to have lunch, and asked if I could have lunch with him in the cafeteria. Sure. So we sat down, started eating, and the conversation was normal at the beginning, but it didn't take long. It took kind of a hard turn. We'd talked about religion before, but this time there was a definite edge to it. And so at one point, Emil said, you sound so sure, like you know you're going to heaven. You're sure about it. To which I answered, yes, I am sure. I know for sure I'm going to heaven. He said, look, Daniel, you're a good man, but how do you think you're good enough that you can know for sure you're going to heaven? Now, some background here in case you didn't know this, Muslims believe a person cannot know what will happen to them when they die. And their theology, that matter is unsettled until the moment when you stand before Allah and he weighs your good and bad deeds and whichever way it goes. Okay. Even Muhammad said he was unsure about what would happen to him on the day of judgment. So yes, that's a pretty arrogant statement for a Muslim. Back to the story though. Emil said, you could not possibly be good enough to know for sure that you're going to heaven. And this is how I answered him. Emil, you're right. I'm not that good, but Jesus is. And because I believe in him, I am sure that he will accept me on the day of judgment and that I'll go to heaven. He paused and then said, wow, I wish I could be that sure. I really do. Well, our conversation went on to some other things, and then it came back around again to hard press that he had for some reason in his mind. He said, so what does your faith say about me? Will I go to heaven? Will I go to your heaven? I stopped and prayed under my breath because I didn't know how to answer this. I'm not a good debater. And I felt like the Lord gave me words. And I said, Emil, you and I agree about many things. The oneness of God, the importance of morality, and many other things I think I listed. I said, but there's one important thing that we cannot agree on, and that's the person of Jesus. To you, he's just a prophet. To me, he's the Son of God. We can't both be right about that. So I believe about you what you believe about me, and that is that I am sincerely wrong. After lunch, and he was gone, I called my wife and I said, honey, I just had this really weird conversation with Emil. It had a real funny feel to it. Something's going on. I'm either getting kicked out of this job or our whole family's getting kicked out of this country. I don't know which, but something's going on. Well, later I found out that Emil, on the basis of that conversation, had turned me over to the state police. And later they came to the university and told them to fire me, which they did. And in that scenario, without the university sponsoring my visa, we had to leave the country in 2 weeks. So you can see my faith, though, in that moment allowed me to find places of commonality with Emil, because it really does. We do have places we can agree. But my faith also placed a limit on that commonality, because trusting in the uniqueness of Christ was a stopping point, was a stop, but also a strength for me to stand firm on so that I could tell him that, and I could stand at that point, even when I knew it was going to cost us something. Well, I think I'll stop there. I hope you're enjoying the videos and the readings. We're getting close to the end of the week. I'll have another video for you a little bit later this week to talk about your project for the final project for next week. But for now, just remember, I'm always available to help you. You have my Zoom room information, and you also have my email contact and my phone number. God bless you guys.